This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's episode of Doc and Jock. You're going to like this one. It's going to be football focused, lots of positives regarding Michigan. Obviously, we're recording this after the Michigan Wolverines were able to dispose of the Washington Huskies. Look, if you really watched college football, you knew that Michigan really, when you looked at the matchup with Washington, that if Michigan was able to execute and play at a high level, they were going to win it. And boy, after starting slow in the first half and a little bit into the third quarter, they picked it up and were able to expose the weaknesses of the Huskies out there who played in the Pac-12. Undefeated 15-0 season. Going to break it down with a staunch Michigan supporter. Finally, the guy we've talked about throughout the entire run of Jim Harbaugh, that he was brought to Michigan to win it all, to do exactly what he did, put together a team that played Michigan football and to take it to the biggest stage, and Michigan was able to do that. But we do have to discuss and examine the national reaction because it was talked about. They did not, ESPN, obviously, with their relationships, did not shy away from peeling back the scabs a little bit. So we'll talk about all of that. And in the second half of the podcast, got to amp up the anxiety because for the first time in 7 years, the Lions are in the postseason. For the first time ever, the Detroit Lions are hosting a home playoff game at Ford Field. And an old friend comes back. So we're going to talk about all the drama because we love it. It's great. It makes for an amazing podcast, an amazing week covering the Lions. Obviously, I wanted to manifest that it was going to be the Lions and the Rams, and it happened. I want to take you guys through the thought process and how crazy it was sitting there on a Sunday, gripped to the computer, watching the 49ers take on the Rams. Because what's happening? I know you're riding high. Michigan beat the Huskies. It wasn't the best game, and the Huskies didn't make it as competitive. I was kind of hoping when they were down by 7 to start the second half, I was hoping that they could get it to tied, and I thought that game might have had the blessing of being an all-timer if it got to overtime. But in the end, Michigan just dominated on both sides of the football. And once you saw Donovan Edwards breaking off a couple, you knew it was going to be a very, very long night for the Huskies.
At no point during this game was I nervous. At no point was I fearful of Washington, which is saying a lot because Washington has a very prolific offense. Michael Penix is going to be a dog at that next level. In this game, the Michigan Wolverines broke Michael Penix. They took his will. By the time that fourth quarter rolled around, he had nothing left. I'm pretty sure he's got 3 broken ribs on his right side, I think it is. So as the game just kind of wore on, and the course of it just kind of took its toll, you could see Michael Penix just wearing down. And look, the big thing that I took out of this game is Michigan is the best and the most dominant football team in 2024. Michigan was the best and the most dominant football team all season long. The 23-24 season, Michigan was that team. There's always some team that kind of bubbles to the top, and you're like, they got the goods. Michigan played a really lax schedule early on, and we didn't really know what to make of them. They kind of hung around in that top 4, top 5 for most of the season, and really down this back stretch, when all the dust kind of settled with Connor Stallions being removed, a lot of the cheating stuff have kind of surfaced, Michigan seemed to really play its best football. Going into that Penn State game, Michigan found a way to win. They almost had a slip up against Maryland. They go to the Ohio State game. They play a great game against Ohio State. You then get into the Big Ten championship game, and they play an incredible game there. And then you go and you pop the cream of the crop in the SEC in Alabama, and then you take out arguably the next best team in all of college football in Washington, and you just dismantle them. You just break their will and you take everything from them. When you've got the Don taking the ball back for 70 some odd yards and you got the Don scoring twice, this guy hasn't been able to been found all season long. He was designated to your third string running back. This was a guy who was on the side of a milk carton, and this guy is breaking your balls. After his second touchdown, you didn't have to score anymore. That defense just punched you in the face, and that defense took what it wanted. The Michigan Wolverines were the most dominant and best football team of this past season, and I think what makes everything all the more frustrating is when the NCAA finally figures out what it wants to do. You and I both know that they're taking this title away. You and I both know that they're stripping Michigan. So what did Michigan really gain by cheating? I don't think that there was anything that was really gained by them cheating. They didn't have to do that. And I think that is the most frustrating thing that is wrapped up in all of this. At no point did you have to go and steal signs. At no point did you have to go out and do any of the things that you're accused of doing. You were that good of a football team. You didn't have to do that. Here's the thing. A lot of teams and a lot of schools are struggling to figure out NIL. I feel like Michigan's got it figured out. If you show up, you play well, you're gonna get guapped out. You're gonna get a 7-figure deal and you're gonna play. Blake Corum came back because he made more money in NIL money than he would have if he would have got drafted in the first round of the NFL draft last year. So they've got the NIL part figured out, and it's working, right? You're able to bring guys back. Like J.J. McCarthy now has a decision to make. What is he going to do? I believe he comes back because I don't think he's going to be anything special in the NFL. I don't think he showed you anything. I think last night was a prime example of kind of what he is. He's a glorified game manager. He's a guy who does a good enough job throwing passes behind his wide receivers, putting them in tough spots to make catches. And he does a good enough job of handing the ball off. And when something breaks down, he can usually trip and stumble his way to grab you 3 or 4 or 5 yards. I think he comes back next season. And unless he comes out and goes and throws for 400 passes and looks like the second coming of Tom Brady, I don't know what you necessarily get by going to the NFL if you're J.J. McCarthy. And it would be more beneficial for this guy to come back to school, to go back to Michigan, again, because they have their NIL program figured out. You're able to build on parts that you have from the previous season with the NIL situation all kind of taken care of. And this has been the big issue with college football is a lot of times guys come in 1-2 years and then they're gone. Michigan has been able to keep guys for 3 and 4 years, and that has helped propel them to this point where they were able to win a national championship. When it's all said and done, you're going to lose this. Michigan fans, you are going to lose this. The NCAA is going to take this away from you. And look, there's a lot of things that will come out in the future. I believe J.J. McCarthy was the cheeseburger athlete, right? I think he's J.J. McCheeseburger here. So he was the guy who Harbaugh had the illegal contact with during COVID, and then you work in all of the counter stallion stuff, and for what? I don't necessarily think you needed to do really any of it. I think you were that good of a program, and figuring out the NIL portion is a big part of it. I think your coordinators are that good. Having the work program with the Baltimore Ravens, where you can take future assistant coaches or you can take future head coaches from the Baltimore Ravens, work them in on your staff, and you can run pro-style defenses, pays dividends. That defense was sick. That defense carried you. That defense punched teams in the face and took what they wanted, and the offense just had to be able to put points on the board. And with the running backs and the offensive line that you have, you were able to control the trenches. You were able to dominate time of possession. You were able to dominate large stretches of the game. You didn't have to cheat. And when it's all said and done, you're going to have basically gained the world, but you're going to lose everything in the process. And what is frustrating as a Michigan fan is that this will not count because the NCAA is going to take it away. And again, I don't necessarily believe there was a good enough reason for you to have to do it, because I believe you on paper and in the field of play were the best football team in all of the land. And I think last night you proved it, and it's going to be all for naught. And that's frustrating to me.
Yeah, look, the game was like I said, you had supreme confidence that the Wolverines were the better team. Isn't it wild that still in the biggest moment, the passing game just was still such a struggle, just a real challenge to move the football via the air. But again, I think what better way to puff out your chest than to run the ball, just emphasizing the run and winning really in a game that was embodied what Michigan football is.
Look at Jay. Let's go back to what you said about the pass, right? I don't think JJ McCarthy is a great passer. I don't think he's a great quarterback. I think that's something that he lacks in his game. If you watch the Michigan football games, watch where he puts the ball. He is generally a step behind all of his wide receivers. The wide receivers usually have to reach behind them. There was a pass to Courtney to Loveland, and Loveland had to reach behind himself, pull the ball back around his body, and then he was able to get upfield for 20-some yards. I think it was like that 43-yard reception that he had. If JJ just leads him a little bit, just puts it out in front of him, he catches it, and he could be gone to the house. But he's always behind his wide receivers. There are a few and far in between times where he will hit the wide receiver or he'll hit the running back right where the ball needs to be. A lot of times there's a lack of touch and there's a lack of direction where he's throwing that football. He's not a very good quarterback. He's not. I don't know if another year helps him with it. Maybe it does. I'm not 100% sure. He's not great. The guy, again, he's a decent enough leader. He's understands the playbook. He can help, manufacture some yards, but the guy is not Michael Penix. Michael Penix is a dog. Michael Penix can load up and throw the football. The problem with Michael Penix is his offensive line let him down last night or on Monday night. His offensive line just got beaten and battered and bruised, and in turn, he got beaten, battered, and bruised. So I just don't see JJ being that guy. Like, you hear Jim Harbaugh talk about him, you're like, oh, he's the best quarterback in the Michigan program. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you had a guy named Tom Brady who went there, and if Tom Brady didn't get dicked around because of Drew Henson, a lot of things could have been different. But it is what it is. So I don't get what people see in JJ. I don't think he's that good of a quarterback. And look, I will welcome him back next year because I think there is a lot of growth for him still, and I think he's a decent leader. I think he can help do whatever Sherrone Moore wants to do with that offense. I think Sherrone Moore will probably be your head coach next year. We're going to talk about what's going to happen with Jim Harbaugh here coming up in a moment. But I think he can facilitate that offense good enough to help keep you competitive. But all that being said, I don't think he's a great quarterback. I don't think he's a great player. I mean, would you want him on your team? Do you want him on your team? I think he's good enough. I think he's like the most average. I don't think he's anything special.
See, here's the thing, is that there are guys that end up, when you look at their measurables, that they don't have it in terms of arm strength and throwing, things like that. But they end up going in the 6th round of the draft, and they end up becoming Tom Brady. Now, I'm not saying that J.J. McCarthy's Tom Brady, but he's got something special where
Doc says J.J. McCarthy is the future Tom Brady.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that there's an intangible that a lot of general managers, like the one that sits and presides over the Lions, that love when a player says, hey, I felt the ultimate disappointment, and I stood there in an iconic pose after overlooking TCU, rallying the troops, and then coming back and accomplishing a goal. That's a major intangible that a lot of people don't have, is that grit, resiliency. So sometimes you just say he's not the most athletic quarterback, but he's got maybe a trait that a lot of general managers will like when they talk to him.
He's got moxie.
He's got and he's a leader of men. And sometimes you could have all the talent in the world, all the arm strength in the world, but if you can't galvanize a room, if you can't get offensive linemen to buy into what you're doing, you're dead in the water. So I think that J.J. McCarthy will have his opportunities. Like in any situation, it depends on the system. If he goes to a system that has a good offensive mind that will tailor and work with him to get what he needs, you get that number one wideout, you get a nice running back and a couple decent linemen, you can run any offensive system that you want, and you can do your thing. So I think J.J. McCarthy, starting psychologically with the intangibles, I think that he's got what it takes to probably have, at the very worst, a long career as a backup And if he gets his opportunity, I think he'll make the most of it if he's given the time and has an opportunity. But the NFL's tough, man. They don't wait around. Do you think he comes
back next year, or do you think he goes to the NFL?
What's that? I think that
yeah. Do you think he comes back or goes to the NFL?
I think that, I mean, if you really look at it, I mean, the team needs to overhaul the offensive line. You're looking at a situation where I don't think you maximize your draft capital next year. I think you do it this year. So I think he leaves.
Ooh, all right. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Is staying in the same vein, does Jim Harbaugh leave or does Jim Harbaugh stay? Look, we both know there are sanctions that are coming. And I think we both are of the belief that there's a good possibility Jim Harbaugh is going to have to sit the majority, if not all, of next season. There are reports that there's a 10-year deal sitting on the table, approximately worth $125 million. There are teams in the NFL who want to sit down with him, want to have conversations. Sounds like the Chargers are one of those teams. They've got a really prolific quarterback. Sounds like possibly even Atlanta. Sounds like a couple of other teams, maybe even Carolina, would like to sit down with Jim Harbaugh. Don't forget about the Bears. So Jim Harbaugh has lots and lots of options. Does Jim Harbaugh stay at Michigan and basically sign the big contract and deal with the ramifications from the NCAA that we both believe are coming next season? Or does Jim Harbaugh flee and go to the NFL and try to win that Super Bowl, try to be one of the only coaches who have ever done it in the college level and done it at the pro level? What do you think happens with Jim Harbaugh next year?
Jim Harbaugh in the same class as Jimmy Johnson? Ooh. He could do it. He could do it, but I just think that it's a long shot. And here's why. Here's the way in which I think it's going down and what I think is happening. He wants to go in the NFL. He wants to, as a competitor, avenge getting his butt whooped in the Super Bowl by his brother. He wants to not have that hanging over his head. He wants to lead a team in the Super Bowl. Who wouldn't? That's the ultimate zenith. And I think that coaching Michigan allowed him to coach men, to really be a part of, to feel the community side of them, like the altruistic side, the side that gives back, that puts aside personal goals, that just says, hey, I'm part of a community. I'll do what I got to do to help men achieve their goals and do what they got to do. So now, once you've achieved that, I mean, 15-0, a season full of controversy, and you win it all. You beat Alabama in that same season to do it. You beat Ohio State. There's not much more you're going to do than just do it again. And even look now, Nick Saban's getting criticized, and the man's the greatest coach in the history of college football. Bill Belichick wins 6 Super Bowls, and he can't even go out on his own term with a couple losing seasons. I mean, if there's one coach that you just say, look, Bill, give us a year that you want to quit. Okay, it's 25. Just let's do a victory tour. We'll give you a free season, and let's go. Nope, he's getting escorted out. So I think that just the competitive itch that Jim Harbaugh has will allow him to pursue it. Now, here's the problem he's going to have. If the reports that you read are accurate, and most of them say the same thing, so I think that it's very fair to give yourself the best chance to succeed, is that Jim Harbaugh wants control. He wants to pick the ingredients. He wants to pick the players. He doesn't want to have some nincompoop that's over him tell him, hey, we need to have some HR meeting here because the way you're acting with your prayers and your animal geographic showings here before the games are kind of weird.
He's such a weird dude.
Did you hear that story about the animals and I thought that, could you imagine J.J. McCarthy and Blake Corum sitting there and they said, I don't know if you saw it, they said that he showed them like a wolf pack. Like he shows them, he loves to show animal documentaries on the Saturday before. It's a group movie night. And I was like, I get it. It's motivational. It'll work for 18 to 22-year-olds. But if you try some of that herky-jerky weird shit on these athletes, they're just going to laugh at you. And so I think that's why I don't think he'll have success. I think somebody should tell him, look, if it's his brother, these athletes are totally different. Like they'll tune you out in 5 seconds. Like Mike Vrabel, a respected Patriot, winner, man who shows up on podcasts, seems like a cool bro. An ultimate bro that you want to hang out with and shoot the shit with. He gets fired. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, okay.
You think he ends up in New England? I think that's his next stop.
Yeah, I think
they broom Belichick out and he ends up there. Absolutely. It only seems like a natural fit.
Absolutely, a true natural fit. So the NFL, you got 3 years tops to get it together. 3 years, that's it. And if you don't win, you're out. And that's the nature of the business. And sometimes you only get a year. Sometimes you get less than a year. And I think that for Jim Harbaugh, he wants to explore it. He wants to scratch that itch. He'll ask for it. And it's going to be up to the decision on Harbaugh is not going to come down to Harbaugh. It's going to come down to, will the Chargers, will the Falcons, will the Commanders, will they give him what he wants? Will they tailor and say, Jim, you're the guy, do what you got to do. You get the Steve Spurrier treatment. And if he gets the Steve Spurrier plan, you cannot turn it down. You get 10 to 15 million. You get full control. You're going to get 3 years no matter what. You just ride off into the sunset and you're done. You can at least say you tried it. Now, I don't think that happens. I don't think an owner in this day and age is smart enough to do that. You don't want to hire a coach and then hire a GM. You want to have a symbiotic situation. And I just think that in the end, he'll do the dance, sign the contract at Michigan, serve whatever he's got to do. The man's in his late 50s or 60s, and he can ride off into the sunset for the next 10 years. Dude, how do you walk away from a job where you literally fuck up the rules? You literally hire people that are incompetent.
Dude, you got suspended for half of the season.
You coach half a year.
Points.
You got a half a year, and in the end, what's waiting for you is a massive 10-year deal. He's got to be like, what the fuck universe are we living in? And you know
what do I have to do to get fired around here?
Yeah, you know what the universe is? It's the winning and the NIL universe where you got the year, where you got the talent, and you found the down year in college football where the supreme talent just wasn't there across the board. You didn't have that superstar quarterback that just lit it up. You didn't have that superstar wideout that just could control the game by himself. And in the end, NIL spread the talent all over the place, and it diluted the talent so that Michigan was like, this is perfect.
Look, I also think that being able to stack draft classes helped this team, helped strengthen this team, and made it as dominant as it was. And again, that was figuring that NIL portion out.
Yeah, but NIL spread out the talent. Like before, Alabama, this is a down year for Alabama. They would have 5-star behind 5-star behind 5-star, whereas if they had a center that kept fumbling the ball, the next play he'd be out, and another guy would be right there, and he'd actually be better than the guy that was starting. And NIL has spread it out so much so that you can parcel out, and basically it's like free agency. What does free agency do? It sprinkles out a little bit and dilutes the talent so that you get a little bit more of a competitive balance. And Michigan ran the formula to perfection. A lot of leaders, a lot of seniors, a lot of great players, and good guys that put in the work to win it all. And you run the football and you play great defense, that plays. So in the end, Jim Harbaugh needs to survey the landscape and go, you know what? I could take a down year. We're going to get our ass beat. And you only got to get to be a 3-loss team to get in. I mean, I think Jim Harbaugh, going through something and not being at his best can get the team to only lose 3 games and be the top 12 team. So I think that he should take advantage fully and ingratiate himself to college football and take the year off or do what he's got to do to rectify everything. What'd you make of him saying, we're innocent? Like, Michigan doubled down and said, we're innocent and we're going to prove it. And I think what they're going to say is, and I think his defense is fair, to try and do it, try and pull it off, which was, this guy's rogue, there's no tie to me. And I think in that sense, the program will be punished. I don't even think the national title that was just won is going to be vacated. I think if he's that staunch, then somebody's telling him, look, the only thing that they can say that's going to stick is, you were the CEO, it was your job to know. That you can't just have, how can you have a rogue dude doing this stuff in the building? Like, you can't just say that. That's your job to make sure it doesn't happen again. And it's your job to be accountable for the fact that it did happen. And I think that's the stand that Michigan's taken, and that's the stance that he's been empowered to take. He'll take it, and he'll face the consequences. I think he'll get like another 6-game suspension, and he'll be able to just be part of the team and still have a decent opportunity to rebuild what happened. That's what I think happens.
It is bizarro land, right? Like you talked about it. Like what kind of world is this where this guy is basically suspended for half the year? All these allegations are against him, and yet they're offering him a $10 million, a 10-year deal worth $125 million, as reported. What kind of land is this? What kind of place is this? And you're right. There I think is a possibility that he goes on to deny, and you seen him kind of doing some of that groundwork on Monday night when they went to go present him with the trophy, and he's up on the podium. He's like, "We're innocent." It's going to be interesting to see what the NCAA has. This is going to be one of those deals where I think there's a lot of legal minutia, and there's going to be a lot of I don't want to say bending of the rules. There's going to be some twisting of some facts and some twistings of some scenarios to try to make what you're saying work.
Oh, cuz I watch a lot of the legal stuff. What the word is legal wrangling.
Yeah,
the legalese, baby.
Legalese, exactly. I think what you're going to get is you have to realize too, the NCAA is after Jim Harbaugh. The NCAA wants Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh is upsetting the apple cart. Jim Harbaugh regularly goes out and talks about how coaches need to give players parts of their salary, how the NCAA needs to start profit sharing with the athletes. The NCAA doesn't want any of that, and that's part of the uproar. On top of that, you go back to when he was at San Diego State, there were comments that he had made regarding the NCAA. You go back to when he ended up taking over Michigan, there were comments that he has made about the NCAA, and then you get into Cheeseburger in Paradise, and he basically outright lies to the NCAA, or at least that's how the NCAA looks at it. So there are a lot of issues that have kind of come full circle for Jim Harbaugh from his past, and the NCAA wants to nail his ass to the cross and make an example out of him. So if he does come back, yeah, I can see what you're saying, where he's able to kind of skirt some stuff. Maybe he serves a mitigated suspension because he had served so many suspensions this past season. But in the end, I think they are looking for a maximum penalty. I think they are looking to make him sit out at least a year. And that's where I kind of don't see him wanting to deal with that. I don't see him wanting to sit that year. I think he goes to the NFL. I think he goes to a team like a Chargers that has a quarterback that he can work with, or goes to a team where they're willing to give him that type of control, like in Atlanta. I think there are teams like Chicago, where with their general manager, it becomes a little bit wonky because, again, they have familiarity with each other. Remember, their general manager was once the commissioner of the Big Ten. So a little bit weird there. But, again, he is a guy who is revered in Chicago because of what he did for the Bears. So I think Chicago could be a landing spot for him. I think he has options. I think he likes to be the belle of the ball, where he is brought in, he is wined and dined, he is talked to, he gets to get pretty, and they get to tell him how pretty he is, and he gets to tell him what he could do for them, and they're like, "Oh, this sounds really great." I think he enjoys the theatrics, and he enjoys going through all of this. In the end, I think it really boils down to what is going to happen with the NCAA. If he believes that he is going to be forced to sit a full year, I do not believe he comes back. I believe he goes to the NFL, and I think he would probably end up in LA coaching the Chargers. If he has counsel, if he has advice that says, "Look, Jim, you might have to serve another 6 games, and it'll be front loaded, so you have to miss the first 6 games of next season." And you look at the schedule, and it's going next year. It's going to be a freaking gauntlet. This team is going to have to just do all kinds of work. You're going to have to play Washington again. You're going to have to play Texas, so the number 2 team, the number 3 team. You're going to have to play Ohio State, who I believe is the number 6 team. You're going to have to play Oregon, who I believe is the number 8 team. You'll have to play Penn State, who I think was the number 10 team. Like, if you look at their schedule next season, it is a bear of a schedule. And he'll have to miss the first 6 games of that. And if that's all he has to serve, I think he could come back. He could be convinced to come back. Again, $12.5 million a season could really motivate a lot of people to do a lot of different things and possibly sit out 6 games. But if he has to sit a whole year, I think he goes to the NFL. I think he's NFL bound.
What a year. 15-0. National champs.
Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Do you agree with me that they were the most dominant team in college football and that they didn't have to cheat?
Yeah, I think that when you see the team the way it was stacked up, Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, 1-2 punch. You got a great tight end that obviously learned the system in Loveland, a quarterback in J.J. McCarthy. I just thought they had enough. But in the end, maybe they just felt like that was what it took to get the job done. And like I said, we'll never know. I don't think we'll ever find out the truth of the depth at which Michigan was trying to get some stuff done. But in the end, I think the crazy part of
30 for 30 would be incredible on this.
The crazy part is that most people nowadays accept it that that's what you kind of got to do in the big time world of sports is if you're not cheating, you're not trying. And, and for Michigan, I think that nobody's going to take back the celebrations that were in Ann Arbor, all the people that went down to Houston, the big money that was generated, the ratings that will be talked about. So, the byproduct of that is that the integrity part in sports is tough. It's the most debatable stuff is sports and integrity. And I think people said, there was a post that came out, and I'm going to paraphrase it, and it's this. It's like, look, every team in college football was doing some version of sign stealing. If you're not doing it, then you're just Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt sucks. So every team in college football but Vanderbilt was trying to do some of it. And if you're not cheating, you're not trying, or you're Vanderbilt, and look where Vanderbilt is, they suck. So that's just the way it is. I think it's more accepted. The integrity is not really, the bar is lower in terms of integrity. And in this case, in the end, I think, when all's said and done, there's still more information that we got to glean regarding what happened, who knew what, when. Was that Connor Stallions at Central Michigan and stuff like that? And it'll be investigated, and we'll get more information. And hopefully the journalists who cover it will share the full details of what they learned. But in the meantime, the darlings of the college football world are the Michigan Wolverines. And you know who are trying to be the darlings of the NFL? The Detroit Lions, baby. They're in the playoffs. And your boy is happy. I hope you're as excited as I am because we're recording this 5 days before the game. And because the coverage is wild, people are looking at
happy.
It's Kelly Stafford, it's Matthew Stafford, it's a bunch of coverage about Jared Goff, his old team, Sean McVay. There's drama galore, and people are paying attention to it. And I think by the time we get to 2 or 3 days before, then you'll start getting the hardcore X's and O's. But right now, it's about the drama, and unfortunately, it starts with a decision that we got to explore that's going to have potentially a huge impact. Now, at the time of recording, we don't know exactly the status of Sam Laporta because Dan Campbell said it's going to be a key 48 hours. There is a chance he plays, but still, he won't be 100%. He'll be far from 100% because he suffered a hyperextended knee against the Vikings, and a similar situation, a bone bruise for Khalif Raymond, and Dan Campbell said that Raymond's injury is a little bit worse, may take a little longer. I think the safe assumption at the time that we're talking is Laporta's not going to be there. I think you hold him out. Dan Campbell's been conservative with players. I don't think you force it, especially when you know the future of what Sam Laporta can do. It's tough, man, because I know a lot of people are talking about resting starters and stuff like that. Unfortunately, the team still had something to play for. And you can't discount that at the time Dan Campbell made the decision, there still was number 2 seed available. And I know they'll say that, the odds were low, it was 3%. But the Lions' karma, that if he would have sat everybody, then the Cowboys would have took a shit and the Eagles would have lost. So you can't do that in the moment live. You can't just live in that kind of world. You got to still fight for an achievable goal. But in the end, Dan Campbell gambled. And this one came up real bad because the injury to Sam Laporta is super tough. It's your biggest, outside of Amon-Ra St. Brown, most reliable and competitive and really spectacular player that helps your offense purr. So it's a big injury. What'd you think of Dan Campbell? Were you mad, dejected? Would you have just said, now learning what you know, how other teams did it? Because the Ravens, took the L, but they were the number 1 seed. I just think it's a tough decision. I think that playing for the number 2 seed definitely plays a huge factor. But I would have been okay if they would have gone into the playoffs losing 2 games and they would have rested. And people will say, well, how do you know that obviously, how do you know that Sam Laporta would have been the guy? Well, obviously, if you're going to rest starters, I think that the meeting, if it's worth a darn, is going to go, okay, we're going to rest people. It should be Goff, St. Brown, Hutchinson, and Laporta. I mean, anybody with a brain that shows up to a meeting with a name other than those four, you're going to be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why are we trying to sit Khalif Raymond? Like, we want to sit the guys that we know that if something happened to them, like we'd wake up in the middle of the night and be like, oh, fuck. And it'd be those four right there off the bat, and you figure it out. And I definitely can make arguments for both sides. I'm not mad at Dan. There was something to play for, and it just sucks because bad luck hit the Lions at the worst time.
Yeah, look, I don't have a problem with him playing guys. I think last week I even said I feel like you should play these guys for a half.
Yep.
Now, the injury to Laporta, it's unfortunate. It sucks because he is arguably your second best weapon. He is the security blanket to Jared Goff. It is Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then it is Sam Laporta. Sam Laporta is essentially Travis Kelce in his prime right now. He is that good. He is a dominant player at his position. He is a game changer. He has pages of the playbook designed specifically for him. So him going down, it sucks. I do not have a problem with Dan Campbell playing the guys because, again, he was trying to secure the second playoff seed. What sucked is the way the schedule fell, where you had the Eagles and you had the Cowboys playing at 4 o'clock, and you had to play the 1 o'clock game. So they knew what was going on, and they knew what they had to do. In the future, if everybody could either play at 4 o'clock or if everybody could play at 1 o'clock, that would make things a little bit better because then everybody's kind of going in real time and let the pieces fall where the pieces may fall. Now, Laporta getting hurt, yes, it sucks. It has a monster impact on the game plan and what will have to be done for this upcoming game against the Rams. All that being said, my big issue with Dan Campbell was when we get into the third and we get into the fourth quarter, why is Jared Goff still out there? Why is Khalif Raymond still out there? Why do you still have your starters in the game when you've got a 10-point lead? Like, what are we doing? At that moment in time, I want to see Teddy Bridgewater get some reps. At that moment in time, I want to see Donovan Peoples-Jones get plays drawn up to him so he can become more of a worked-in piece of this offense. I want to see other guys get more touches than a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown who has safeties basically kneeling on his ribs when he's going to get up. I want to see other guys taking hits that aren't Khalif Raymond. Yes, I know he's your fourth receiver, but the guy is still impactful because he plays an integral part on your special teams. I want to see other guys doing other things. I don't need to see your starters out there getting bombarded and getting hit by the opposition. Now, look, you're going to be a 3 seed, all right? You lose, like I said, arguably your second best offensive talent in Sam Laporta, a guy who has been a revelation to this offense. There are some names being kicked around, and there is a little bit of conjecture the moment that this happened, the moment we found this out, that if Sam Laporta can't go, they could maybe go and look at a guy who's a free agent, a guy like a Zach Ertz. Do you feel like Zach Ertz would be a solid fill-in and a good addition to this roster? Because I could see Zach Ertz coming in. Again, he has familiarity with the tight ends coach. I feel like they could design a couple of plays for him where he can be a focal point of a couple of different series. I feel like he has been there, played in big games. This is a guy who could fill in admirably while we wait for Sam Laporta to get healthy. And hopefully if Sam Laporta is able to come back for round 2 of the playoffs, you now have a little bit more depth with a guy like Zach Ertz in that tight end position. Would you be all about Zach Ertz coming in and filling in while we wait for Sam Laporta to get healthy? Because this is a position on this roster that is pretty thin. And a guy like Zach Ertz, again, with his history, with his ability, and with his familiarity with the tight ends coach, could be a guy that you could see work his way into this offense and really, really help out and fill in a tough spot.
Here's what's tough is that I think the contingency plan at tight end should have been done when Brock Wright was hurt 3 weeks ago.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, I think that they were banking.
A really good point.
You know why? Because here's what the Lions do. Yeah, I would do it, but here's the problem. The Lions, and I think too, there's such a thing as football knowledge and game shape. I don't think Zach Ertz can come in on a Wednesday or Thursday and just show up on Sunday and just show up and understand here are your 3 plays and run them. Maybe you get them for 5 snaps, but in the end, I think that the Lions are a team that kind of are a draft and develop situation. They utilize their practice squad because the calls and the checks, and there's so much. Like, the Lions offense is not vanilla. The Lions offense is intricate where Jared Goff gets 3 plays based on a look, and he's got to pick the right one. And that's just crazy. When you look at the intricacies and you dig deep and you realize sometimes, like, I don't know how Jared Goff doesn't just get overwhelmed. Like, it's not easy. You get 3 calls, and you got to just look to see, okay, is it single high safety? Is it zone? Is it man? What are we doing? Who's going to be here? Who's going to be where? And it's just a nightmare. And if he makes the wrong move or if he's not exactly in sync with his receivers, he's going to throw an interception. So I think what the Lions have done is they've said, we're going to just go with Ferkser, who's back on the practice squad. We're going to go with James Mitchell, who I think will have an opportunity to showcase he can do something. And then you just sprinkle. You say, okay, if Laporta was going to get 10 catches, the injury that hurt, really, I think more is in regards to what this game might need. Raymond, you saw 2 explosive plays. That's what the Lions have been lacking. And for some reason, you would think it would be Jamison Williams, but Khalif Raymond has been that little engine that just makes plays when you need him to, and he's not going to potentially be there. So I think that it's a pipe dream on Zach Ertz. It would have been nice. I think that I could be wrong, but I'm not certain. At least week 1, he could come in on a Thursday and then just show up on Sunday and then just be the guy that shows up in the end zone and is Sam Laporta. That's what sucks, is we need Sam Laporta, the machine that he was. And when you saw that angle that his knee bent, I think everybody was like, oh, shit. And it was unfortunate. Thankfully, it's not an ACL. Thankfully, no ligament damage or significance where you say, oh, maybe just a 2-week thing. And I think where Dan Campbell gave people hope where he said, days, not weeks. That's awesome. And there's still a chance outside shot he could play. I think that was gamesmanship, knowing that for sure he's out against the Rams. But I would say for the Lions, out on Zach Ertz. It doesn't seem to be their MO right now, especially when they have it at the position. They have a couple guys they could at least get some information on by playing them, and I think that maybe we'll see if Brock Wright practices, but James Mitchell can step up. He was a draft pick of the Lions, and typically he hasn't been used much. Maybe now it's his opportunity. So you said you're not excited about the Rams. Why not? You know why I'm excited. It's all about engagement, attention, drama, nonsense. And I'll just say this too. I'm just going to take 60 seconds to say this. If you're in the business in the media and you don't want to talk about what the people want to talk about, why the hell are you in the media? Like, listen, I get it. You want to focus more on the X's and O's and Puka Nacua versus Cam Sutton and the inside leverage of the defensive line. That's great. Talk about it. But you can't neglect the fact that 1,000 people commented on the story that the people that we know at the Detroit line wanted a Stafford ban at Ford Field. And it set off the debate about literally, I said it, that the Stafford storyline was going to drive the whole fucking thing the whole week. And you got people debating, and that's what sports is. I love it. You got people debating, do we love Stafford? Do we hate Stafford? Should we let Stafford jerseys in? Do we not let Stafford jerseys in? So if you're in the sports business and you don't want to debate what the people want to debate about, that's what I say. I'll bounce. If I'm ever to the point where I grow and I'm like, I don't want to talk about that because the people are so want to talk about that. I'm like, dude, if the people want to talk about it, then I'll talk about it. That's what being a true liaison to your consumers is. You journalists got to kind of bend a little bit. We're not saying ignore the X's and O's and the stuff you want to do. Don't ignore all the things that you're going to want to cover that might be a little boring and make people snooze. But at the same time, just sprinkle the salt. Don't dump the whole container. A little salt in your journalistic, formula. And I'll say this, okay? So for those that are the hardcore journalists, even the beat writers, which if they come at me or say anything, I'm just going to say, Mr. Beat Writer, what was the journalistic value in writing that Amon-Ra St. Brown has blue hair? What was the value of that to your newspaper? What was the value journalistically to that? You know what the value was? entertainment, enjoyment, uniqueness. You thought that somebody of interest would want to see that Mr. Amon-Ra has blue hair? So don't tell me and sit there and be high and mighty and tell me you're just, I'm the journalist, and you look down on an entertainer or someone trying to give an opinion when you're doing the exact same thing, but we're doing it in overdrive and we're not shy about it. So give me a break and talk about what people want to talk about. Now, I think, and maybe I'm assuming, but you're scared shitless that Matthew Stafford is going to run his game on the Lions, because it ain't happening. Stafford is going to shit the bed like the 10 years he did when we broadcasted. The same dude is going to be falling on his ass. He's going to be throwing us interceptions. He's going to throw a bomb. Yeah, you're going to see Nakua and Kupp have explosives. But when it's time to expose your nuts and do your thing, he's going to shrivel up and make the mistake. That's what we saw for the entire time that he was here. That's why we were screaming not to pay him. And that's why I love this matchup, because one, it gives you momentum. One, the team's going to be hyper-focused, and Jared Goff is going to mind his P's and Q's. Stafford ain't shit, and he never was, and he ain't going to do shit in this game.
So the reason I'm not excited about all of this is for the exact opposite reason you're excited about all of this. I don't want to hear about Matt Stafford. I don't want to see Kelly Stafford. I don't want the ensuing drama that we're going to get. I don't want to deal with any of it. Look, I was annoyed.
Oh my God.
Sunday night.
Hold on. Okay, we know
that was all that they were talking about regarding this.
At this J school, do they take out the fun? Does Pat Caputo sit there and go, when you are doing journalism in sports, if it involves drama or something that's of influence, take it out of the rotation. What the hell? All you guys are all the same. I'm like living. I've got permagrin. All you guys are the same. It's entertainment. Put a smile on. It's no big deal. It's just some shit to talk about.
Look, man, I hated Kelly Stafford when Matt Stafford was here. I was tired of Matt Stafford when Matt Stafford played here. So why the hell do I want to revisit these bums? I don't want to live this shit again. We moved on from you 3 years ago. I was happy. When that blonde bitch left, I was pumped. I was like, take your brain cancer and get the fuck on. Go. Get away. I'm done with you. I'm so sick of the sob stories. Like, I'm gonna have to watch another stupid Brad Galley special with fucking with
the music.
Kelly Stafford.
No, sorry.
Oh, how does it feel to be back here in Birmingham?
Sorry.
How are your daughters?
She's Channel 4 exclusive.
Brain cancer. She's gonna end up going to Beaumont where they worked on her head to get whatever carcinoma out of her fucking skull. I mean, like, I don't give a shit. I don't care. I don't want to see you. And when you really boil it down, you break it down to brass tacks. What I do care about is what's going to take place on the field. And look, Stafford is essentially a moderately mobile statue. He doesn't really move a whole lot, so I think that bodes well for this defense. But there are elite weapons all around him. Puka Nacua is a dog. Cooper Kupp is a dog. You got Keelan Williams. He is a fall forward, I'm going to make something out of nothing running back. He is a dog. They've got dogs all up and down their offensive lineup, and I think they're going to exploit and take advantage of this weak-ass secondary. If I got to see Cam Sutton get burned again, if there has been a bigger waste of free agent money than Cam Sutton, I'm not sure where it is. This guy, I'm sick of watching him get toasted. I'm sick of watching him cause PIs. I'm sick of watching his ass on the corner trying to play an island while he's getting beat like a bitch who just stole money from her pimp. I'm tired of watching it. And now you're going to add all that in with the Kelly Stafford BS. You're going to add all that in with the stupid Matt Stafford. Like, I don't want to see Matt Stafford's stupid fat face. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see Kelly Stafford's dumb ass. And then you got to add in what could happen on the field with Cam Sutton getting torched by any one of those guys that I just named. Ugh, that sounds like pain to me. That sounds awful. That does not sound fun to me. I get why you get off on it. I get why Sunday night you were sitting there with your Jergens and sitting there with a box of Kleenex and you're like, I can't wait. And you were just filling the trash can up with dirty napkins. I get it. I know why you were there, but I don't want to see it.
Okay, I'll tell you why. Okay, here's a little inside baseball. And obviously the reason when you do podcasts, and Adam knows it, he worked part of the flagship radio station and all that. He knows the deal. right now, the last two subjects that we talked about have been covered at All Lines, okay? We talked about the pros and cons of Zach Ertz. I'm looking at it live, and there's a story we wrote today about Kelly Stafford reacting, her opinion of what the ban the Matthew Stafford movement means to her.
That's the thing. Like, I don't give a shit about your opinion. Shove it. Shut up, lady.
Okay.
You're useless.
And I hate to report.
Like, honestly, what is her purpose in real life? She's a cancer-ridden cum dumpster for Matt Stafford. I said it. There it is.
There you
go.
But here's the thing.
Go produce babies and be quiet, bitch.
But here's the thing. You have to acknowledge it right now in the ratings. That story about Kelly Stafford has 4 times as much action engagement right now live as we're talking, as I'm looking at the numbers and the graphs live that are provided to me as the pros and cons story. Those are the top 2 stories. 1, Kelly Stafford. 2,
well, you know what?
Pros
Fans
and cons
are simple. Fans are stupid.
But that's the thing. So obviously, people want to talk about Stafford and the loyalty and should you cheer for him. There is something there.
You should not be allowed to wear a Matt Stafford shirt.
Exactly.
Those Lions Rams shirts or those Detroit Rams shirts.
Gone.
You people are the worst. You should go hang yourself.
When we look at this situation, that's what people are talking about is the fact that there's drama and people like to debate and things like that. All we're saying is we have both. We have the analysis, we have the hardcore, and we have the drama. That's all we're saying is you can't sit there and thumb your nose at people that want to read it. If that's it. I will never do that. Is that if you guys want to talk about it, I'll talk about it. I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, you guys are just like, oh my God, can you You'd never ever. I think the first rule of thumb is you never upset the customers. If the customers want to read it, then I'll write it. I don't care what it is. And in the annals of sports, it's great that that's part of it. And I think that's where there's always a little bit of a mix up with people is that they're so used to just the boring, traditional, here's how you report, just the facts. Well, just the facts is going to get you to a certain point. You don't mix in the other stuff. You alienate what people want. If the people want cupcakes and you're selling macaroons, you better fucking make some cupcakes or those macaroons are going to be fucking stale. You know what I mean? So let's get after it and give the people what they want. And that's what we've done here for a decade. And we just gave it to you. A little bit of X's and O's, a little bit of nervousness, a little bit of drama, a little bit of entertainment. Cuz how nervous are you that the Rams will leave Ford Field with the victory? They do have an explosive offense. They do got 2 defensive linemen that can fuck up the Lions in Kobe Turner, who's got 9 sacks. Unfortunately, he got taken before the Lions could get their hands on him. They made a trade. And it was very wise. 9 sacks is getting molded and taught by Aaron Donald, who obviously is supremely competitive, but is on the other side now of his career. You got 2 offensive weapons, a run game. You got a defense that stepped it up. You can throw on their interior is great. You can throw on the Rams defense. The injury sucks to Laporta. I am concerned moderately outside of, I think, Dan Campbell having his team prepared. I think that Dan Campbell's more aggressive and will take advantage of the aggressiveness a lot more than the Rams. I just think that Stafford's going to turn the ball over a little bit and give us those extra possessions. And I think that the emergence of Jahmyr Gibbs, ready and willing in the postseason, the run game with David Montgomery, Jamison Williams has to. I think the key for the Lions is 2 or more explosives. If they can get 2 or more air yard passes of over 25 yards, good yards after the catch, they win the game. Don't count on the kickers. Don't count on the secondary. The cornerbacks are going to get torched. Yes, it'll happen. But in the moments where you need them, I think Branch, C.D. Deuce, Kirby Joseph, they make plays. It's going to be a situation in which Stafford is going to be felt. The Ford Field is going to be rocking. The pressure is going to be there. I think the Lions play. This is going to be a nightmare game. I think that it's not an optimal matchup. There's a lot of things the Rams do well. But my prediction is the Lions, like they've done all year. I have no other reason to say it, but the Lions suited up 17 times, and I wrote at the end of the day 12 winning stories. 12! And now when the attention span is the most focused, the tournament, Dan Campbell, all the stuff that's going on with the Lions and knowing what they need to know, I think the Lions win it by a point, 2 points. Stafford will have the ball left, down by 1 or 2, and he'll toss the pick. That's how I see it. That's how I'm seeing it. I see a pick 6 in the mix somewhere, maybe to end the game. I don't know. We'll see, but I think that this game might take years off a Lions fan's life, but in the end, the NFL needs Lions-Cowboys too. I need Lions-Cowboys too, And I think that a win against the Rams closes the chapter on Stafford and moves this organization forward. The Lions get their first playoff win since 1991, and I truly believe it.
You asked me what my nervous level is, and on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably at a 7.5. I don't think the Lions defense necessarily matches up well with this offense. That being said, I think that the Lions can take advantage of the Rams defense. So similar to you, I have this being a very close game. I can see Matt Stafford coming in here, wheeling and dealing, throwing 4 touchdowns, but throwing 2, maybe 3 interceptions. And that last interception is critical and crippling for the Rams. If the Lions win, it's a big if. Like, I am very nervous. I am not as confident as you. I could see the score being something along the lines of 31-30.
Yeah, high 20s. I think 28-27, 31-30, something very close, man. Get ready, get your nervousness on. It's going to be close. I think this is going to be one of the greats to cap off Sunday. And we'll know, I think, too, what's a blessing, cuz, is the Lions, somebody, if they're worth a darn, will tell the team, the Cowboys just won. Let's go. That's all you got to say. The Cowboys just won. Let's go. And everybody's going to understand. You show what you got to show. And pay attention too, guys. Dan Campbell revealed something. It's nondescript. It's not something that's going to stick out. But a psychologist like me picked it up right away. And he said, I'm going to have my guys ready. I'm bored. I keep it fresh. He goes, I get bored easily. So I mix it up. I mix up my messages. I do things. And I understand what I got to be doing. What that means is Dan Campbell puts himself in the position as a master motivator to get this guys going. And what's he going to say? It's clear what he's going to say. Nobody respects you. We've just now started. Now you enter the dance. What did he say? Perfectly scarred. Perfectly scarred. That means that they built the grit. They built the toughness to know, okay, we might be down 10 points in the third quarter. No big fucking deal. We'll come back. And that's what this football team is. They'll fight to the end. Even if they're down 10, you won't see us giving up. I think that the Lions will play a great brand of football. And in the end, the eruption, the motivation that they got literally all you got to say is, we got fucked in Dallas. I want to go back there and finish the job. And if that doesn't motivate this team to get on their P's and Q's, to destroy Matthew Stafford, to keep Jared Goff upright, then I don't know what is. I just, like I said, from the moment this was done, I say that you got to be laser focused. If it was the Packers, you maybe go to bed at 11:30 instead of going to bed at 1. This will keep Dan Campbell up at night. I expect Wednesdays, check in on Wednesday's media session. The man might shake off the damn podium because he didn't sleep. Because he knows that if we don't do exactly what we need to do to take care of business, we're going to get run out of the gym. So I love the matchup from the time it came out. I went through 2 Kleenex boxes, not just one. I got full testosterone, as you can hear. I'm full, baby. At 44, my testosterone level is way overdone. And I'm feeling good. The site's doing well. The podcasts are doing well. People are loving it. They're sent, like, radio people are sending us pictures of Stafford jersey getting burned. You guys are liking it. You guys are liking the increased context and the graphics, all the other stuff that you guys like, and we appreciate it. And I think that for the fans, they need to enjoy it. The win is coming. I truly feel it. I feel like the universe is conspiring for the Lions to play the Cowboys, and you get a sense that the Lions have a lot to play for. It's a big game. I want to come back here next week, fire up the microphones, and talk about how the fuck am I going to get to Dallas on the time that we record the next broadcast. Cuz, 1-point win for the Lions? You calling it?
Yeah, 1-point win.
1-point win, baby. Doc and Jock, stamp it. We've manifested it. Positivity coming through these microphones. I love it. Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Make sure anywhere that you download and listen to your favorite content, type in Detroit Sports Podcast, 3 words, and our content will be there for you. Like and subscribe, share, talk about it. Don't hesitate. The water's fine. You don't have to like what we say. We open the floor to everybody. Everybody's welcome at Detroit Sports Podcast. Whether you want me to talk about X's and O's and film reviews, or whether you want me to talk about Matthew Stafford and his wife Kelly, who's got it in with Channel 4, which that, pissed off a lot of journalists too, because Mr. Hank Winchester is not really following what Adam's been taught, because you ain't supposed to be interviewing the people that you're covering. You ain't supposed to be their friend, Mr. Hank, but thank you. I think you're like, hell, if I can party with the Staffords, might as well be friends. But when Stafford and Kelly need a sit-down interview with the beautiful music, who's interviewing them? Mr. Hank Winchester on Channel 4. Alrighty then. That doesn't seem to fit with the rules that Adam was taught. But hey, bend them when you need to. And here at the podcast and John's seat, we bent them all the way over, baby. And that's what we do. We bring entertainment. We bring journalism. We have journalists that work with us, that advise me. And that's what I love, is that the entertainment will be there. It's a staple. It has to be there. But at the same time, we never, ever want to ever alienate somebody that would take the time to click on a page or download a podcast and say, hey, you want to talk about it? No way. That's not on our agenda. We talk about what we think you people want to listen to. And that's why we've been firing it up for 10 years. That's why this episode, to kick off the year, has got me pumped. A great episode. Two dudes that see things differently. But at the end of the day, we'll crack a beer and be like, let's celebrate Michigan's tainted championship. Let's go. Cuz I can't wait to talk to you next week on the latest episode of Doc and Jock.